Hi there YouTubers, and how are you doing? Welcome back to another episode of Airgunning for Beginners. And this video has been requested by quite a few people on the YouTube comments asking about how do you set your scope up on your rifle and how do you zero it. And Steve, could you do a video on that, because it will be great. So your wish is my command and I shall do that. But what I would say is that if you are new to air rifling and you haven't seen the previous episode, I think it's episode 4 on scopes, I seriously suggest that you look at that video. We'll leave a link to that at the beginning where you can see all the episodes. I seriously suggest take a look at that and then look at this video. Now, the way that we're going to do it today is we're going to use my trusted caliber cricket. Here it is, and this has got my HD digital zoom on it. Does lots of wonderful things, but not the topic for this conversation today. So we're going to take this off and we're going to put this big bad boy on. And this is an AGS, and it is a 6-24 x 50 AO illuminated as well scope. You can get these for about £100 and they are cracking scopes. So what we're going to do is take this one off and we'll take you through the procedure of putting on a new scope. So we'll have a bit of an intermission while I do that and we'll come straight back. So here we are, there's cricket, and we've stripped off the scope on that. Looks quite naked now. That's what a standard cricket looks like, for those that are interested. Right, so we've got a second camera set up here, you can see on the tripod. Hopefully we can get some close-in shots, because it could be a little bit fiddly. But we have our scope that we've unpackaged. Now the first thing I'm going to do with this scope is that I'm going to use the rear eye focus, and I'm going to hold this where I can see through it nice and clearly. I'm going to point it at a target, say 20 meters away, and I'm going to turn until I'm nicely in focus. And there's a reason for that in a bit when we fit it and we check the eye relief. So do that first. The next thing you need to do is take your actual rings themselves, your mounts, and you need to remove, with the hex key more than likely, the screws that hold them together. Keep them nice and safe, because you're going to need them back again, and split your mounts like so. Right, next, depending on the mount that you've got. Now I've got what's called here Picatinny. So these operate on a nut, and that nut goes centrally through and squeezes and tightens it all up. So I just use a wrench just to tighten them up. The first thing we want to do is we want to place our mounts onto our rifle where we think the scope is going to go. But we're going to do everything finger tight at the moment. So let's take the rifle itself. We get our first mount and we think roughly the first mount's going to go here, and the second mount I think we will try and put it, in fact no, we'll move them sort of more centrally. So we'll have them like so, the first one and the second one, yeah, like so. And I'm just going to finger tight these on, so hopefully we can see this here. Just finger tight these on like so, and this is guesswork at the moment, total guesswork. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my scope. I'm going to make sure that it's the right way round, so basically the elevation turret, yep, your up and down elevation turret's upwards, and we're just going to slide that around and just slot that in and roughly put it horizontal. We're going to then take our scope rings, we're going to place our scope rings over the top, and then we're going to take our bolts and we're going to put our bolts into each of the holes. And then we're going to finger tight these bolts. So we're just going to literally just use the hex key just to literally just get the threads to make contact so that the halves won't split. And this allows us then to adjust the scope to where we actually want it on the rifle. Now I'm cheating here a little bit, I'm only putting in the corner ones. It's okay at the moment. So I'm literally, and there's no particular order you need to do these at this stage. I'm literally just getting these threads to make contact so the two halves of the mount are in contact with each other and won't come apart, like so. We just drop that on there. There we go. So now if I pull the tube and move the tube around, the tube moves, and you can see that the mounts are there, but they're secure, but everything can move, and it can move freely backwards and forwards. And if I just loosen off the scope rails themselves, I can actually move the scope rails as well. So let's just loosen this one off a little bit more, and I can move the scope rails backwards and forwards. So now I've got full movement of this scope along this rail, and this is important. And why is it important? I don't know how many of you have picked up a rifle before and you're trying to look down a telescopic sight, and as you're looking down it, you're squinting, you're looking all over the place, and you can't actually see down that scope. You just get black shadows or you get bits of brightness, and you're not actually getting a clear picture. And that's down to a thing called eye relief. That is how far your eye is away from the end, the eyepiece of the scope, when you're in the natural shooting position. And it's going to be different for everybody depending on the rifle, the scope and all those combinations. So the reason we've done this nice and loose at the moment is so that we can test this, and this is why we made sure that we were in focus before we did this. So now we can pick the rifle up very carefully, because remember it's all loose, and literally now we can aim down the rifle and we can adjust the scope backwards and forwards until we get an absolute perfect picture when we're actually got ourselves in the perfect shooting position where you would normally shoot with your cheek resting against a cheek guard and looking down your target. Once we're happy we've got that, then we can start to do some tightening down. So we're now in the position, we know that this is the right place for us. There is one last thing that everybody forgets to do before you tighten down, and this is where your spirit level comes in. You need to make sure that this rifle, the crosshairs, are actually horizontal to the rifle itself, and the easiest way I've found to do this is with a spirit level. What you need to do is you need to find something that is perfectly in a straight line and flat, say 10 meters away. So a house, find a house that's got bricks, made of bricks, and it has mortar, and those mortar lines, if your house is well built, should be nice and horizontal, i.e. spirit level. Put your spirit level against it and just check. If it's not, buy a new house. But basically, put your spirit level against it. Right, so we know now we have something referenced to be horizontal. And I'll put a few pictures up and show what I mean by this as well in the video. The next thing you need to do is you need to get your rifle totally horizontal as well. So if you've got a bipod that makes life easier, balance it out so that the back is supported and get the whole rifle horizontal. Use your spirit level and make sure that your rifle is horizontal. While keeping the rifle horizontal, then turn your scope until your crosshairs match up perfectly horizontal in line with the mortar in the bricks or whatever horizontal reference you're using 10 meters away. That means your rifle is horizontal, your scope is horizontal to a known horizontal position 10 meters away. That will make life so much easier. You can try and do it with a spirit level rested on the top, but then you'll need to make sure that the rifle is perfectly horizontal and that this is perfectly horizontal as well. And you can get these little small spirit levels that you can buy in DIY shops that you could just drop onto the top of one of your turrets and just check it that way to make sure it's there. But you also need to make sure that the rifle is horizontal as well, otherwise they'll just be skew with. Once you've done all that and you know that you've got your correct eye relief from the end of your eyepiece to where you would naturally shoot, you've got your scope mounts in the right place, and your tube is rotated horizontally so it's perfect, then we can start to tighten up. And the first place to start the tightening up process is on the mount itself, and just tighten those and do everything finger tight, just so you just can't go past finger tight at that stage. Now we need to drop in the rest of our screws, if you haven't already, into the top of the scope itself. So we'll just bring this to this angle and we'll just drop the rest of these in. And it's at this stage where you hope that you've got them all and you haven't lost any. And I've dropped one on the floor and we just drop one in there. So let me just make sure that we're all set. Okay, and now you need to tighten up the scope itself. So the first thing to do is just put your hex key in and just go to each one of them in turn and just tighten them slowly until you feel them, until you just feel the pressure, and just go around. Now at this stage I'm not doing any sort of special well, at this stage you should be now using a cross pattern. So if we just tilt this to this camera, I've done this one here. I am now going to go to the opposite corner and I'm going to tighten this one just until I can feel it nap. Then I go to the opposite corner. We'll do this left-handed so we can see. Go to the opposite corner, tighten it until I can feel it just nip. Opposite corner, tighten it. Then we do the middle ones, just so you can feel them tightening up. And this is making sure that you're putting even pressure on the tube itself, so that you're not overstressing one corner and pulling the tube out of alignment or putting fatigue on the actual tube itself. So we just do that one. Now at the moment I'm just doing these just until I can feel them nip. And we'll speed the rest of this up, but I'm just going to do the rear ones as well. Exactly the same procedure. Make sure you do corner to corner and then do the central ones. Corner to corner. And then the central ones. So everything now is literally at finger tightness. And it's at this stage, once we've done that, that then we repeat the process and we tighten everything up. So now we're going to tighten up the mount. So we'll just put in, we'll make sure we're going the right way, and we're just going to tighten it and just nip it. Same on the other one, we're just going to tighten it and nip it. Don't overdo it, there's no need. And then up the top we will then take each of these and we will tighten these and nip it. Take the next one, tighten it, nip it, and then again we're going in a cross pattern with the bolts, and we're just tightening them all up. And this means that we get an even distribution across the whole of the scope when we tighten the bolts up, so that we're not pulling anything out of alignment, we're not putting undue stress on the tube of the scope. Just like doing a car engine for those that have done that. Like so, and there we go. We are done. What we've got is we've got our rifle, we've got the correct eye relief, we've got the correct scope position, the scope is rotated correctly as in its tube mounts. We are now all ready to start the zeroing process. Okay, so now we're outside and we're going to do zeroing. So, most important thing, when you're zeroing, make sure you've got some nice, clear and calm conditions. It's not too windy, because that's obviously going to affect things for you. And a big mistake that people do first time is when they first put a scope on to a rifle, they try to zero out at say 25 meters and they wonder why they get nowhere. Well, the chances are the scope is not aiming anywhere where the rifle barrel is aiming at this stage. You've only just put the scope on. So what I generally do is I put my target out at 10 meters and do a rough zero at 10 meters. I'll then move out to my target range of 25 meters for my zeroing and then fine tune it for 25 meters. That way I know I'm hitting the target, I know the scope is roughly pointing where the barrel is, and I know that it's going to hit the target, and I'm not going to be hunting around for pellets that I have absolutely no idea whether it's me that's shooting or anything like that. Now you can do this out at 25 meters if you want, it just means you need a much bigger target and it's more difficult to see where your shots are landing. Also, when you're zeroing, you want your rifle as stable as possible. So I'm lucky I've got a bipod on mine here, but I'm also going to use a rest, so that literally I don't hardly have to touch the rifle at all. I literally just come in, I squeeze the trigger, and then I can make my adjustments as well. We'll make the adjustments, we're going to fire a shot at the target, and if it's high or low, then we'll use the top turret for elevation to bring the scope up or down the crosshairs, and it's left or right, we'll use the windage to move it, and we're doing it in small minute moments. And what we're going to do is we're going to guide the shot into the centre at 10 meters, and then we'll go out to 25 meters to do it. It's also important as well that your target should be level with your barrel, so it should be vertically level. If you're actually trying to zero and your target's all the way down here, then you're sort of defeating the object, and you will see about that when we talk later on about hold over and hold under and all those sides of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 10 meters, we're going to do a couple of shots, I'll talk you through how I zero it in, and then we'll move out to 25 meters to complete the zero. So I've absolutely no idea where this is going to aim at the moment, so I'm just aiming at the centre of the target with my crosshairs. And keep everything nice and steady. And we've hit. So I can see that that is off to the right and down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the elevation, and I'm going to look at my turrets, and it tells me to turn my turrets. If I want to bring the shot up, I need to turn it clockwise. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 clicks, and if I look at my target again, I'll see that I'm actually right quite a bit. So I need to look at my turrets, and my turrets say that if I want to go left, I need to go clockwise on this. So I need to bring it, because I've gone right, I want to bring it left. So I'm going to bring this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think about 6. And what we're going to do is we'll take another shot and see where it goes. And what we're trying to do is guide the pellet into the centre of the target. So again, we're at 10 metres. I'm aiming dead at the centre of the target. Okay, to save you from watching 5 minutes of me shooting and talking, I decided that what I'll do is I'll speed this section of the video up. It's either that or some music. So all I'm doing here is I'm shooting, taking a shot, and then adjusting the turrets left and right, and I'm slowly guiding in the pellets into the centre of the target. Now I'm not aiming here to get precisely bang centre, because this is all going to change when I move out to 25 metres. All I'm trying to do here is make sure that I actually hit the target, so that when I move to 25 metres I've got a fighting chance. Yeah, we're pretty much there. So we know that now at 10 metres that we're actually hitting the target in the centre of it. So now when I move out to 25 metres, I know that at least I've got a fighting chance of hitting that target, and I can recontinue my zeroing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move out to 25 metres and do the zeroing again. Okay, so now we're out at 25 metres to do our final zeroing. Now the range you pick will be your typical hunting range. So if you're doing ratting or rabbiting, and you've got a sub 12 foot-pound rifle, your effective range that you're going to be taking most of your shots will be between the 20 and say 30 metres range. So it makes sense to zero your rifle at 25 metres. Now if you're firing high powered rifles and you're shooting further out, then you zero further out as well. But typically you'll find that sub 12 foot-pound rifles, most people are zeroing around the 25, maybe 30 metre range. All depends on the characteristics of the rifle. So I'm out at 25 metres, we've got a target down range, and we're going to do the same procedure now. And now we're going to refine this and get this as tight as possible. And this is extremely important now that you keep the rifle as stable as possible, because if you are actually zeroing this, you're not actually out in the field target shooting or hunting, you're zeroing your rifle. So you can cheat as much as you want by keeping the rifle as stable as possible. Alright, and so our shot's now hit, and I can see that that shot has gone high and right. So I want to be adjusting my turret, so I'm going to drop my turret down. Wrong way. And so I'm just going to turn that one down, and we'll go to the left a little bit, and we'll take another shot. And what we're going to do is we're going to guide this pellet in to the centre of the target. Okay, again you can see I'm just taking shots and then adjusting the turrets either up and down with the elevation or left and right with the windage. And the objective here obviously is to bring the shots into the centre of the target. Now you'll find that over distance that you will not need to change the turrets so much compared to at shorter distances, because the pellet is travelling further and it makes a bigger difference for up and down, left and right. So you can see here that I'm now slowly getting the pellets into the centre. Obviously this is a windy day and you shouldn't really be doing wind. When zeroing, if it gets windy, let the wind calm down. And that is the basics of zeroing. Our rifle is now zeroed in up to 25 metres. That's the basic way of leading your shots into centre, i.e. what some people would call lead zeroing. It can take quite a few rounds to do that, and I seriously recommend that's the way you do it as a beginner. Okay, so what we're going to do is try to show you how to do a two-shot zero. Now the principle behind this is that you take your first shot and you notice where the pellet hits the target. You then keep the rifle crosshairs at the centre of the target, and then get someone to then move the turrets or move them yourself without moving the rifle, and move the crosshairs to where the pellet landed while keeping the rifle in exactly the same position as it was when it was pointing at the centre of the target. Theoretically then, when you take your second shot, you have adjusted for the offset and the pellet should hit at the centre when you aim at the centre.
This is extremely difficult to do unless you've got a very good gun rest, or you've got somebody to help you out while you're keeping the rifle perfectly still while they move the crosshairs to where the bullet impacted. But I'm going to try it with the crosshairs. And notice the pellet has gone low. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim at the centre of the target with the crosshairs again and keep the rifle perfectly still. And I'm going to use my turrets, and I'm going to drop the crosshairs to where the pellet landed. And on the left. Okay, so I've got the rifle perfectly where I want. Now I'm going to aim back at the centre with the crosshairs. And you can see I've almost got the 0, and that is because I'm wobbling all over the place, and it is extremely difficult to do. I don't recommend you do this as a newcomer. I recommend that you do it the original way we showed it, where you just guide your pellets in. It is difficult to do zeroing, but stably you can keep your rifle. Try not to do it in windy weather like I've got today, and with practice you'll get it pretty quickly. Okay, so that's the basics of zeroing. Let's just go through those points again for fear of repeating myself. But primarily, mount your scope so that you've got good eye relief, so that you're in an actual shooting position. You can see clearly through the scope. Make sure that the scope is twisted horizontally in the barrel, using the reference points to make sure your crosshairs are perfectly horizontal. When zeroing, I really would recommend for a newbie to zero at a shorter range, say 10 meters first, to make sure that when you've initially put the scope on the rifle that you're actually in the vicinity of hitting the target. And if you're not, then it's just going to reduce those angles down and less deviation, so that you can actually make sure you can get onto target quicker. If you try zeroing out to 25 meters or further, the chances are you can spend all day wasting pellets trying to work out where they went, unless you've got a piece of a target the size of a house to hit. Once you've done that, then move out to 25 meters to do that, and basically guide the pellet in. Now obviously your zeroing is as accurate as how you shoot, your breathing, your positioning, and how you do that. So if you're not sure and you may have got a shot that's just gone flying wild, ignore it, take a second shot. There's nothing wrong, and there's no shame in having a card full of 100 holes with a nice line as the target and the pellets hit the centre of the target, like I've done here. Some people may laugh at this for a zeroing, but you can see where what's happened is I started up here and I've taken multiple shots and guided the pellet into the centre, and that is the principles of zeroing a rifle. Two-shot zeroing, don't try it as a newcomer. It's going to be extremely difficult. You're going to get frustrated to do that unless you've got two people and you've got a proper rifle mount that's clamped down properly, and even then if you do that on a Springer, you're just going to get nowhere. So hopefully you've liked this video. I know a lot of you have requested it. If you want to see more videos like this, please leave the comments down below. Give me a huge thumbs up, or if you don't like it, thumbs down. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next beginner's video for air gunning. Thank you very much.